Welcome to the Finding the Magic podcast. I am here today with Laura Drake. She is a fantasy and paranormal author. Welcome, Laura.
Thanks, Trisha. It's so great to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to you about your books. I've browsed them a little bit on the internet. So you have the Chronicles of Andar series, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yes.
As well as Japanese Haunting series. So I didn't read all the descriptions because I wanted to hear about it from you. So jump in and tell me, where do you want to start with what you published first, or?
Yeah, we can start with the Chronicles of Andar. It was my first official series that I finished all the way, and it's kind of, like my baby. So this is actually the only one that I have in paperback this series, because the Hauntings ones are about to be released as like a 4-in-1 box set because they're little novellas. So all I have are these right now to show. But the magic books are fun because I find that as a writer, I tend to switch points of views when I write books. So like the first one is from this girl's point of view, and then the second one is from her friend's point of view, and then the third one is from another point of view. So I really enjoyed getting to write, and like it's like you get to see the story in the different ways and kind of pick it up with all these different thoughts. So I really love that. It's kind of, I tell people it's like a Harry Potter, magical academy. They get sorted into different academies based on their elemental magic. It's like Harry Potter meets Avatar: The Last Airbender. So I had a lot of fun with this series, like the world building and the culture, like the different cultures of the different regions and just all that stuff. It was really fun for me to kind of get going. The first book really, I feel like, focuses a lot on the academy stuff, but after that, the world building really happens in 2 and 3. So it was great.
Neat. So it sounds like they're witches, correct? It's a witch series.
Yeah.
And are they living in our contemporary world, or do they have a separate world?
Yeah, it's a separate place. It's just this country called Andar, but like 100 years ago, it was actually just these 4 elemental tribes, essentially, that each lived in different areas. And there was like a lot of wars and stuff that happened, but eventually they became unified and they formed a country. And now it's just the regions. And so their magic started mixing, and that ended up creating this new magic. She's got like, it's called light magic and dark magic. And then there's fire, water, wind, and earth, or not wind, air, I guess I should say. But anyway, so yeah, I just totally forgot your question.
I was asking if they were in our world.
Oh yeah,
and if
right. So it's totally different.
Time, do they have normal technology like we have now?
No, there's no like cars or anything like technology like that. There's no phones, but they have things that I based it off of. Like they have these crystals that they use. They're called communication crystals they can kind of send messages or sometimes do videos, like kind of like video calling, and there's like different animals that each region kind of raises that they kind of use for transportation, and they live with them and stuff. So that's kind of my replacement for cars and stuff like that. And then there's like just like different things like that. Like they have this a little bit of light magic that can be used to like transport between places through mirrors, so like mirror traveling. But no, it's pretty separate.
Very cool. So your series, in it, I'm guessing, even though each one is a different point of view, it continues the story, right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I have a similar series. Mine is called the Kingdom Journals, and I called it that, and it's an contemporary urban fantasy, but I called it that because it is told from a different point of view of each of the characters, but it continues the story. So I was making each one kind of a journal of that character and them telling their story, and then the next character continues the story. So yeah, I love that premise.
Did you find that your readers were like, when they got to the second book, they were like, wait, what happened to the first character's point of view? And they were like shocked at first, but they're like, okay, no, this is good too. But then like every time there was a change, they were like, why did you do that?
Oh yeah, I made it pretty clear because I called them like Kingdom Journals, Kingdom of Embers, Alina's story, and then the second one is Camille's story, is Kingdom of Darkness, Camille's story. So I made it pretty clear. But yeah, some of them were like, wait, where are we now? So I think there's a little bit of that, but I like, and I guess I could have written it third person, but I like the fact that you get that first person account of how that person was feeling and what their thoughts and were and what their motivations were, because some of my characters I felt like would be misunderstood. Like, yeah, just my opinion. Agree. Yeah, is that
I love first person.
Did you find that too?
Yeah, I think like a lot of people are like, oh, first person is so limited, you know, because you can only do what that person is seeing or feeling or what they know. But I feel like that's why I like it, is because it's like you feel like you really bond with the character and you like are really immersed in the story because you don't know any more than they do, and like you can really relate to what's going through their head at the moment. So I feel like we must have pretty similar styles, but I love that kind of, like, even as a reader, I love it when I can read a story and then the author will like tell it again, but just from another character's point of view. And I'm like, I love it.
Yeah, I like that about Twilight too. I don't know if you ever read the version that was Edward's version of, or if you like that series or not, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I did read it. I haven't, it was a while ago, but I pretty much anytime, like I read Twilight back in like junior high, but even when that came out, I was like, oh, I just love reading anything from a new point of view. Like there's this author, Karen Lynch. Do you know her?
Oh no, I'll have to look her up.
She's urban fantasy. I love her books. And anyway, she has this trilogy called Relentless, and then she rewrote it with, like, she did all 3 books in one with, Bailey, I'm on a Zoom call. She did all 3 books in one, just like kind of condensed it, but from the guy's point of view, and all 3 were from the girls the first time. And I like loved hearing it from his side of the story.
Oh, that's very cool. Tell us about the characters in each of the books, so we'll learn a little bit more of them.
So the first one is about Emmeline. She goes to this magical academy, and she really struggles with, I guess you could say, like, her shyness and anxiety, because she is the only one at school who doesn't have magic, and it's an academy of magicals. So she just really struggles to feel like she doesn't fit in and she can't find her place. But she has this group of best friends. There's 3 of them, her roommate Ivy, and then these 2 brothers, Neil and Gray. And so the 4 of them just have this really great friendship that essentially that's the only reason that she feels like she belongs, is because her friends are there. And then she has this teacher, this mentor, who pretty much he teaches all of her classes because she can't go to any of the normal ones and she doesn't have normal magic. So he's also kind of like a big brother to her. And so the first book is all about her kind of overcoming, she's got like this bully at school that she deals with, and it's like her struggling to find her place and feel like she fits in, and like learning how to protect her friends when all these crazy things start to happen, like people are going missing around the school and like the school gets attacked, and there's like this new magic that's appearing, and I guess it's not necessarily new magic, but it's like magic that's being used in ways that they haven't heard of before. And so there's like this big mystery and a little bit of a intrigue going on. And also there's like, you know, you're like getting backstory about there's a royal family and a missing princess. And so there's like a lot of that happening in book 1. And then in book 2, it shifts to Gray, one of the little brother. He's like a huge jokester. He's like always making jokes and puns and kind of turning the situation lighter, even if it should be serious, but he's like super loyal. And he's probably one of my favorite characters. He's just like, yeah, he's actually, well, I don't know, it's a bit of a spoiler, I guess, not really a spoiler, but he has a huge thing for Emmeline, and but she's totally oblivious to it because she has a thing for his brother. And so yeah, I love him. And then it's like great because in the second book he goes through a lot of really hard things that are in a contrast to his goofy personality. So it's like this pretty big character arc for him there. And then the third book shifts to his big brother, who like ends up having to take on this huge responsibility, and he's already a really serious, like, he was the one who's always like, guys, have you turned in your homework, like get to bed on time, you know, like he was kind of like their mom almost. So they all tease him about that, but yeah, anyway, so it's his story last, but it's like him dealing with the pressure of being like, people think he's a prodigy because he's got 3 types of magic and most people only have 1 or maybe 2. So it's like all this stuff. And yeah, I loved kind of getting each of the, like, people will say like, it feels like Emmeline's story, but in my head, I'm like, no, like the first book was Emmeline's, the second book was Gray's, and the third book is Neil's. Like they all have their own story that just furthers the overall plot. But yeah.
I love that. It sounds great. How did you come up with the idea?
Actually, super cliche, but I had a dream one night when I was in Japan, and I just woke up and I was like, it was just like, all it was that I remembered, you know, when I woke up was somebody trapped in this crystal that was like draining their life. And so then I woke up and I started writing all these notes. And I don't know if you've ever done that, where you like, if you like, sometimes I feel like it slips away the more you try and think about it, but sometimes it comes back to you and you're like, oh, I gotta write it down as fast as I can. So I remember when I lived in Japan at the time, and I had like this 80-minute commute to work on the train. And so I just spent the entire time like, you know, hashing out details for the plot. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be 3 separate books.
Wow, that is super cool. What fun. Did you always want to be a writer?
I've always liked writing. I know I did some writing in high school, and like I've always been a huge reader. Like I could blow through multiple books in a day. You know, like over a weekend and stuff. But I didn't seriously think about it until I moved to Japan. I did start writing in college with a friend. We did like a co-writing project that we still haven't finished, but hopefully it'll happen in the future. And then after college, I moved in with some other teachers. I was a 4th grade teacher before I left, and we all started writing a book together about how to be single, like what to expect when you're single. And so that was like another kind of attempt at writing, which we still haven't finished. But then I moved to Japan, and I don't know why, but I guess it just flipped a switch, and I had lots of time, like without any roommates around to hang out with. I was like, well, look at all this time I have to write. And so I started working on the first magic book, and then I just got like deeper into the process, and I got some beta readers, and I started hearing people's reactions to the story, and I was like, wow, I love this. And then also like from that moment, it just like solidified my desire to want to do this for real.
Very cool. And I'm guessing that living in Japan may have inspired your second series.
Yes, it definitely did. I've always had this huge love of Japan. Like, I don't know why, probably since I was 12 or so. I think I had this girl that I met at camp who was Japanese, and we became pen pals. And then you know, like I love anime and like Japanese culture and food and like all the things that you think would be stereotypical, like, oh, you're a Japan nerd. But then also like I've lived there 3 separate times. And I just like every time I go back, I just like love it so much, and like the people and the culture, and they're just like so friendly. And anytime you say anything in Japanese, they're just like, wow, your Japanese is so good. And you're like, it's really not, I just said good morning, or like whatever, you know. They're just like so supportive, and I'm like, I love all of them.
And the name of your second series is Japanese Hauntings?
Yes. So essentially what it is in the first book, you meet the main character, Selena, and her dad, and they end up moving into a haunted house, and it's haunted by a Japanese ghost. And then that ghost story arc is continued throughout the entire series. So it's like what happens in book 1 isn't resolved until the end, but also throughout each book, you end up meeting another Japanese ghost that they have to like overcome or defeat or whatever it is. So it's like each book has a different ghost that it focuses on, and then it also has a lot of just Japanese, like the guy that she has a crush on in the series, he's half Japanese, and so they end up actually going to Japan for book 2, and that's based off of, you know, a lot of my time there, like things that I did with people when they came to visit me or things like that. So that was really fun, like working in all the Japanese cultural bits. I think I love sorry, I feel like I'm talking a lot.
No, you shouldn't be. This is the point, right?
Okay. I was gonna say I love like the 4th book in the series is actually from the guy's point of view, and so you get his like interaction with his parents, and like you get the Japanese that's like part of his daily life, like and integrated in. And so it's just really fun to work that stuff in for me, because they say, you know, you should write what you know, and that you want to have like an inclusive cast of characters, but I don't like to just drop random like Black characters or Spanish character, or like what, you know, like I don't want to drop any characters that I have no experience with, but I'm like, okay, Japanese at least I'm comfortable with. And I love like one of my ARC readers that she just like, I don't know her, but she just signed up to read the books, and she's actually, I want to say somewhere from like the Philippines maybe, or I don't remember, but somewhere in Asia. And anyway, one of her reviews was just like, I love that it's based on Asian lore and not just like American, or, like there's not always a ton of Asian inspired things. And so I love that I could, do that for people.
That's very cool. I just heard about, and I can't even say what they are now. It starts with an A, but it's these Japanese, and it's from Japanese culture, but it's these ghosts that hover above the water, but they're all ghosts that people that died in the ocean or in the water, and they're what is it? Do you know the
I
name?
should know this actually, because I'm pretty sure I referenced that in the 4th book when they're researching different types of ghosts, and there's something like, it's like
I think it's ASH, something like that, or I don't know. Anyway, that was pretty interesting. I was on a Facebook party last night, and somebody said, well, what kind of characters do you want? And this girl said this, and I was like, I have to look that up. But it was Japanese for these ghosts that are ghosts of the people who have died in the water. And
that's super funny. I don't know why. I just like love Japan. I just want everybody to love Japan like I love Japan. So I guess that's probably why I did it.
Well, I have a lot of travel in my books as well, and that's one thing I've been asked before. People say, well, did you go there? And I'm like, no. I have been going to Iceland and Italy. In my romance series, I have her going to China, and like, no, I just do research on the internet.
Do you think it's hard when you haven't been, or do you feel like the research is enough?
I think I think the research is enough. Maybe if I were talking more about the characters, but they were really just visiting or on vacation or those types of things.
No, that's cool.
Hopefully it was enough. I mean, nobody said I hate that.
I'm sure it was great.
I really the scenery is more important to me than the rest, I think. But
yeah, no, that's cool. I like feeling like you get to get a glimpse of a new place when you read a book. I mean, most of my places are fictional, and like at least in this series, but like when they're based in real places, I think as a writer, I really hate research actually. So I very rarely do things that require research. So that's why I feel like I do so much like fake world building.
Well, it's a fantasy, right? So you can do that.
yeah, it's fun. I do remember like in the Hauntings books, I have them like going back to school in California, and I like named the school, like in the last one he's like going to Berkeley, so I kept asking my friend who's at Berkeley right now, like I'm like, hey, is this right, or is this accurate? And I'm like, why did I choose a real school? I should have just chosen a fake place. I'm like not worried about it, but I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, for my first series I did, it was a college series. It was based on Northwestern University. I did get someone to read that went to Northwestern, but I went to college a little bit ago. So the main thing, it was funny because the main thing was she was like, people don't own cars. We take the Lyft or Uber. I was like, oh yeah, okay. Especially in the middle of Chicago, right?
Yeah.
It worked out.
Yeah, she was like giving me to like, okay, here's like there's a lot of cut bot places around campus, or like there's lots of froyo places, and also here's all the trains that you can take to get all around California. And I'm like, oh no, so much information.
Well, at least you got a little piece of that in there.
Yeah, it was fun.
What do you have coming next? Are you planning anything else?
Yeah, I'm actually about to finish the first draft of a new novel. It's my first standalone, so I'm really excited about it. It's brand new, like it's not related to any of the series from before, but it's about this girl who is trapped in this realm called the In-Between, and it's kind of like this place between life and death. So at the end of the first chapter, she realizes that she died and she has no memories of her old life. And so she has to decide if she wants to like pass on into, like the unknown and face whatever's next, or if she's going to try to return and get back to her old life. But you don't know, like you have to decide before you have any memories of your life or know what it's like. And you don't know like necessarily if you actually can return. It's just like a chance to go back, that it might not work out. But she decides to try and return, and you have to collect all these memories of your life to give you the chance to. And so it's like all about her adventures there of learning more about herself and what happens in the in-between and the dangers there. So yeah, it's been pretty fun to write, a bit of a challenge actually, because it's so different. Like, I'm like, wait, can I show their normal body reactions if she's not having a real body? Like, it's been very confusing.
Oh, that would be challenging. That's a really cool premise, though. I like it.
Yeah, also another dream. So
well, I challenge you to write a standalone because I only have one standalone, but it's really only because I had to do it for I not had to do it, but I did it for an anthology, and it's supposed to, the rules were it had to be a standalone. But I have people saying, hey, I want you to continue that one. I'm like, sorry, I can't. But because every time I write a book, I love it so much that I have to do more.
Yeah, I've never from the get-go, I always know that my books are either going to be like a series or like, I feel like I always am planning on series. So this whole standalone thing is like very, very different to me. I'm like, oh, like it's very freeing in a way. So I'm like, oh, I don't have to worry about any like foreshadowing or any like consistency with later books. I'm just like, this is it. And then I'm done.
Right. Well, that's a little bit freeing too.
It is. It really is. But I can see why you'd be like, actually, I love this way more than I thought I would. And I don't want it to end quite yet.
Yeah, I did talk to an author that she killed everybody or wrapped everybody up. And I'm like, what? You did what? I'm like, oh no, don't do that.
Yeah,
she was a horror author though, so it's a little bit easier to kill everybody in horror.
Yeah, I definitely have my fair share of deaths or disappearances and things like that in the haunting books, but actually, there's even some deaths in the magic ones, so I'm no stranger to that. But it's hard. Have you ever killed a big character? Do you feel like I was just like bawling every time I write any chapters like that?
Oh no, yeah, I cry when I'm writing all the time. Yeah. No, my mom actually challenged me to this, and I killed my mom in one of my because she was like, "Oh, I want to be a character that dies." I'm like, "Okay."
Well, like challenge accepted.
I'm like, you better watch what you wish for around me.
Seriously, my mom always gets mad at me because in the hauntings books, well, they say write what you know, so I always end up drawing more of my life into the books than I probably should. But like she considers the dad in the hauntings series, she pretty much she's like, stop doing that to your father. And I'm like, Mom, it's a series.
It's so a fiction book, Mom. And so just to make sure, which series is a YA series, correct?
They're both YA,
they're both YA. Okay.
Yeah. So my goal is essentially for all of my books, I want them, even if they're not YA, like the book I'm working on right now is called Till Life Do Us Part. And it's currently the main character is like 30 years old. So it's not really YA, but yet the content is completely like YA appropriate. Like I like to write books where I'm like, my 10-year-old niece could pick it up and I wouldn't have to worry about her reading it, So it's like my goal for everything I write is to have it be clean. But then it like starts to blur the lines. I'm like, wait, so do I still mark this as YA if the protagonist isn't? Or like, it's like if the only thing making it YA is the age, like it's very confusing actually.
Yeah, that was hard when I wrote my first series as well, because it was new adult, quote unquote, because the character is in college. So you can't call it YA because I think you're supposed to call it based on the age of the characters. But then it's clean new adult because I fade to black, and yeah, I have it pretty much PG-13 appropriate. And somebody said, well, why didn't you just set it in high school? I was like, okay, well, I guess I could have done that. I don't know. But
it's like, but you don't always want to read about high school kids, Like, I'm like, I want to read about a girl or a woman who's like, 30 and like, in this case, well, she doesn't really know, but it's like, say like 30 and she's like struggled with life and like not in love yet and stuff like that. Like, you don't care if a 16-year-old hasn't found love yet. You're 16. Like, of course you haven't found love.
Or if you have, it probably won't be happily ever after.
Yeah, it's like I'm going to do the same. I'm planning these Jane Austen modern retellings for this girl. She's going to go through her years of college with the books, but it'll be the same. It'll be clean. So I'm like, it's like, well, why not make it YA? I'm like, well, because it's a college story. Like it's this girl coming into herself. Like not everything's about high school students.
Right. Well, I love the premise of your new book, and that sounds super fun. When is that coming out?
I'm not sure exactly, but my goal is to get the first draft done by the end of the month, and then it has to go through the beta readers and an editor. Actually, I still have to get my cover figured out. The cover designer I usually use, so sad. Her house was destroyed, and like she lives in the Philippines with all the storms and stuff. So she isn't working right now. And so I need to just find somebody new. But anyway, so there's still a lot to do, but I figure I can tackle that, the more technical stuff once the draft's done and it's out to betas, because then I'll have time to focus. But I'm hoping like April, maybe May at the latest.
Oh, fun. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else on the books for after that?
Yeah, after that, my goal is I actually want to do a 5th Japanese hauntings book just for Halloween, like a little revisit the world for people, because a lot of them were sad that it ended. And I was like, well, there's no reason. It's like the story arc is over, but there's still like, as long as you have Japanese ghosts to bring in and you have the characters, like you can keep going. Mm-hmm. So I might do a little revisiting for that for Halloween. And then I want to do a 4th magic book, because there's 4 friends, but only 3 of them told their story.
Okay.
So again, it's like after the main arc ends, but kind of like what's happening after, like the after effects of everything that went down in the first 3. So that'll be fun. And then those Jane Austen retellings, and then I have some some fairy tale retellings. I'm thinking that would be fun to do.
Super fun. This is my favorite question to ask authors, and hopefully it won't stump you too much. What do you want your readers to experience or take away from reading your book?
Oh no, this is easy, because this is literally the reason I started writing. So when I was a reader, certain books, like I read fantasy a lot, but I also love like pretty much anything fiction. Like I love Regency stories and romances. And there's this book called Edenbrooke by Julianne Donaldson. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but I just like loved it so much. I remember one night I was just like on my floor, like rolling. I was like, I love this so much. And it's like, it's like made me so excited, and just like, I don't know. It's I guess a weird reaction, but I was like, I just want to write books that bring people like such excitement and like joy like that, like the things that I got to experience as a reader, I want to share that with others. And so that's why I like to write.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your books with us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. You're such a great host, Trisha.
You're welcome. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. And as always, when I talk to authors, I want to go one click with all of their books. So I will be picking up at least, I'm not into ghosts, because ghosts scare me.
Yeah, but they are very spooky. So if you don't like suspenseful reads, I would avoid them.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up the magic one though.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I hope to hear what you think about it.
Great. Have a good day.
You too. Bye, Trish. Bye. Oh, sorry, Trisha.